Many people are going to compare Pope Benedict XVI pontificate with Blessed Pope John Paul II. Obviously, Pope John Paul II, his pontificate was much longer. He was a brilliant intellect, very much loved. How do you think, in hindsight, the pontificate of Pope John Paul II will compare with Pope Benedict XVI? Compare and contrast.
That's a very, very good question. In terms of their intellectual life, John Paul II, despite people that attempt to grab him for their own uses, is a phenomenal Thomist. The man studied under Garrigou-Lagrange and did most of his early work before he was even the Pope, having those encyclicals that he would later write already finished for his own diocese. And if one knows St. Thomas Aquinas, one can read the thought of St. Thomas Aquinas very distinctly in John Paul II's writings, even though John Paul II wouldn't quote him. But he was thoroughly formed in him. That contrasted with His Holiness Benedict XVI, who was much more of a follower of Bonaventure, wrote his doctorate, actually, on St. Bonaventure. And that in itself, you have a little bit of a Dominican versus a Franciscan. And in this case, a Dominican's charism, of course, is to preach and to teach. And John Paul II did that in spades, with a charismatic personality that was able to pull that off. Whereas His Holiness Benedict XVI is extremely reserved. He would much prefer a quiet place to be able to study and to pray. And incidentally, as he said, he was hoping to have the opportunity to do that at the end of his life, as opposed to receiving the charge of being a successor of Peter. Nevertheless, I would say that what he has attempted to do is to make sure that the pontificate of John Paul II does not get stolen by persons for their own use. He knew the Holy Father very well and knows his theology very well, and certainly was the one in the last 8 years who has anchored it to the tradition of the Church.